Hi, my name is Rod Cleef, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Cleef, and I am thrilled you're here. And I'm honored to have the guest that we have today. And I'm honored because he is active duty military. And his name is Brian Briscoe. And Brian has his company's Four Oaks Capital. He's got 168 doors that he's closed on. They've got 82 more they're closing on this month, and just got an approved LOI on another 167. So he is moving and shaking. But what's really cool about Brian is that he's a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps and works at the Pentagon, and he's done this on the side. So very excited to get into that. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks, Rod. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's have some fun today. So go ahead and do what we always do, which is kind of talk about how you went from the Marine Corps to real estate and why, and kind of give us a little bit of a chronological background on you, if you would.
Yeah, so as a brief chronology, I think I was a reservist in 2000, 2001 timeframe. I was a graduate student at the University of Minnesota. World Trade Center went down, and I decided to go active duty. That's big event, and I know this isn't going to air for a while, but tomorrow is the anniversary of that date, and
no kidding. Oh,
something
wow, that's
that
right. Sure is.
really hit home for me. But so I went active duty, and basically never looked back. Never went back to grad school. But along the way, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad like many people do, and I realized if I'm going to be moving every 2 to 3 years, I may as well just buy houses. So everywhere we moved, we looked at the local market. We picked up a rental house and did that for several years. A couple of times deployments got in the way. I've deployed several times to the Middle East, but a couple of years ago, I sat down and I realized, I could start to see the light at the end of the tunnel with my Marine Corps career. And I realized that my single family portfolio, wasn't going to do it for me. I had kind of imagined, that, if I bought 1 or 2 houses every couple of years, I'd be set for life and never really put a lot of thought behind it. So did some spreadsheeting one day and realized it was going to take me, 30 years at one single family house per year to get to my passive income goal. So started looking at other things, picked up a couple of books on multifamily, started listening to your podcast, Michael Blanc's podcast, and a few others. And literally it was my drive home every day, my gym time, every time I had an extra minute, I had my earbuds in and I was listening to one of the podcasts. But I decided I want to do multifamily, and ended up getting into a mentorship program. And basically from there, found a couple of partners. I think the biggest struggle I had was just the timing issue. You mentioned I work at the Pentagon. That's, a fairly demanding job at times. And basically, I wanted to scale. I wanted to be able to have something in place when my Marine Corps career winds down. And that's what got me into it.
Fantastic. So, and you see the value of mentors. We've got a mentorship program, and and it's my greatest gift in life because I literally get love every single day from somebody. Every single day, I get a DM or an email or a gift or a card from somebody whose life we've impacted. It's the biggest blessing in my life, besides my wife and my kids. But so go back and talk about that first larger deal, and it could be 20 units or more. But what was your first deal?
First one was a 55 unit.
Okay,
it was a $4 million purchase price on the dot.
Where at?
Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Oh, nice. Good area.
So upstate South Carolina, we're really bullish on that area. That's where most of our assets are right now. But I had agreed to work with a guy named Eric and a guy named Brian on this one. And we had put several LOIs out, and this was the first one that we connected on. All the LOIs that we had put out were, C class, B class value add properties in the Carolinas. and we finally got some traction on this one. So, it was me, Eric, and Brian at the time. And then we sat down and we just said, hey, who else do we need to be able to get this deal across the finish line? And we realized we probably needed a little more help on the capital raising front. It was, $1.9 million capital raise. And so, Eric said, hey, I know a guy named Todd. So we brought Todd Butler into the mix. And what we didn't know at the time is that
Todd, one of my students, Todd?
He's one of your students,
yeah.
Todd. That's
I recognize that name.
Yeah.
It's really funny is I met him at a pool in South Beach. He goes up, he goes, are you Rod Cleef? And he's like, I said, yeah. And of course, I never get tired of that. And,
right?
Yeah, he's a good guy. Him and his wife, China. Is it China? Shayna. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, they're both absolutely amazing. And I'm very fortunate to have the partners I did. But, at first we brought the team together for one single deal. We worked together. We liked each other. Our interests aligned, our goals aligned, and it didn't take us very long to realize that we had a good thing going. So that's when we formed the company, and we've been exclusive ever since. So
fantastic. Now let me ask you this, because before we move on to that deal, so we're talking about team building here, and of course you're in the freaking Marine Corps. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that for team building. But my question is, do you all have your own set roles inside of your little partnership here?
We do.
Yeah. Talk about that for a minute. Like, are you each playing to each other's, to your individual strengths?
We are, there's strengths and there's also, availability, with my job in the Pentagon, I'm the least available. Eric is our asset manager. He's really good with numbers, and he's really good with people, which is rare for someone.
Right. Oh, that is rare. Yeah.
And he has a job where he's traveling around the Carolinas, frequently. So it just made it easy for him to be our acquisitions guy. So
perfect.
He's traveling on his day job. He's setting up appointments, and then when he's got a free minute, he's meeting with brokers. So.
Fantastic.
So he does our acquisitions. Todd is doing our asset management primarily. Right now the podcast is my bread and butter. And
that's right, guys. So he's got a podcast called Diary of an Apartment Investor. Brand new, but it's already doing real well. So congratulations on that, by the way.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, so that's my baby right now, and I'm kind of the public face, because that's something that I can usually schedule. So I've been doing a lot of podcasts with other people, and a lot of social media posts and content to try to drive people into the funnel. And
so
Brian,
you would be classified as the investor relations person. Then you're raising, you're doing the, I'm certain. You're doing the podcast. That was one of the reasons I started mine, was because I hate asking for money. And of course, it's done that times 1,000 for us, but okay.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that's my role. And then Brian Mallon, he handles the systems, he handles the communication. So he's got his hands in a lot of everything. He assists Todd with the asset management. And he does our website. He's the one that makes sure emails go out on time, reports go on time, and everything else. So
Gotcha. You need all of that. Well, that's fantastic. That sounds like an awesome team you guys have put together. And I know I don't know the other gentleman, but Todd's a super guy. So it sounds like you've really put something together that's incredible. So back to that 55 unit. You had to raise 1.8 million. You were able to pull it off, and. Any hair on that deal? Talk about any of the setbacks or stresses or things that you encounter. That first deal is always the hardest, takes the longest, most stressful,
So we had the benefit that the owner put in, had a little faux pas. He put in 60 business days in the contract. I mean, he started the contract, and for due diligence, he put 60 business days,
Nice.
And being our first time, every time we came up to a setback, we just sat down and said, hey, we got plenty of time. And, I think towards the end, we probably should have had more of a sense of urgency up front, but every time we had a setback, it's like, let's think about this. Let's make sure we're making the right decisions. One thing if I could go back and do it over again, I think we would have had more of a sense of urgency up front.
Why is that? Right.
things at the end. And we had no way of foreseeing this, but if you remember, about August last year, Fannie and Freddie got up their caps as far as what they could
Yeah, it was
legally
very,
lend.
very hard to get loans through at that point. Yes.
Right, and that's right when we closed.
Mm,
So about 2 weeks before we were supposed to close, I get a phone call from the lender, and she told me, she's like, "Hey, Brian, you're not going to like this, but your rate." We were doing a Fannie Mae loan. She's like,
yeah.
yesterday,
They'll do the loans, but the rates go up. Yeah.
the rate went from 3.9 to 5.1.
Oh my God.
In a four-day period.
Oh my God. That's a
what
bad
that did. Oh yeah, it was a really bad day. It cut our proceeds by about $600,000. We ended up negotiating some of that back, but looking back at it, had we had a little more sense of urgency, we would have had it all buttoned up, in plenty of time, and that wouldn't have been an issue. So we ended up having to, basically move the needle on the GP-LP split to make it work, with the new proceeds. So
Sure.
As a general partnership, we're barely making any money off of that.
But as experience, it's worth its freaking weight in gold.
Yeah,
Yes.
and absolutely. I mean,
So let me interject something. So guys, he said a couple of things that if you're brand new, you don't understand what he's talking about. First of all, if you're really new, you don't know what an LOI is. An LOI is a letter of intent. And what a letter of intent does is it starts the conversation, because you always have an attorney write your contract when you're doing commercial multifamily every single time. And that costs money, obviously. So what you do is you use an LOI to start the conversation. It's got all the main deal points in it, and it talks about the price and the property and and the dates and the due diligence dates, like he just described, where the seller must have done the contract and put in business days, which worked out in your favor on that deal. But the LOI is doesn't cost anything. It's a 2 to 3 page document. It's typically non-binding, and but it lets you agree on the main points, and then you can spend the money to have the contract written. And the other thing he talked about was the GP-LP split. So of course, in any syndication or larger deal, you're going to have general partners, and you're going to have the equity come in with limited partners. And if you have an occurrence happen like Brian went through with the interest rate going up, and then of course your loan amount goes down, because if that interest rate affects your debt service coverage ratio, and so they have to adjust the loan amount called the proceeds. And so what Brian had to do is he had to adjust the split that he had made previously with his limited partners. Typically a split on a syndication can be anywhere from 90-10 to 50-50. I don't recommend 90-10. In fact, I even avoid 80-20 wherever possible. But sometimes you have to, to make a deal work, you have to get skinny. But there is that, like I alluded to with Brian, that importance of getting that first deal done, because when you're done with it, you're like, you know what, we can do this again. And I see it with my students all the time. They get that first deal, and it might take them 8 months to get it, but after that, they're like dominoes, and next thing I know, they've got 600 or 1,000 doors. It's crazy. But so you got it closed. You learned from it. It was a great experience. If you've put that team together, you focused on South Carolina. Tell me why you like South Carolina.
When I started looking at markets, I live in DC right now. I wanted something close to where we're at. I just picked a bunch of the cities over 500,000 up and down the East Coast, and did an analysis of all the numbers. And South Carolina, as far as a state goes, and a lot of the cities in that area, especially upstate South Carolina, were all doing phenomenally. And then you realize that, my wife was born and raised in Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh,
so,
there you go. Okay.
We go there 3 to 4 times a year anyway. So that's really why, we started focusing in the Carolinas in general. And I was previously stationed in North Carolina, so we knew the area. It was, economically and demographically, performing extremely well. And it's within a day's drive. So,
love it. And guys, in my live events or live stream events now, one of the things that we talk about is how to select an area. And And the top two choices when you're selecting an area, first is your backyard. And that's like anything within a 2-hour drive is considered your backyard as far as I'm concerned. And then the second thing is somewhere that you grew up or spent time. And so in this case, Brian, your wife, grew up in that market. So she knows it. She understands it. For me, it would be Denver. And that would be the second choice. And the third choice, of course, is where you have boots on the ground. Somebody that understands the market, knows the business is going in and out, has their ear to the ground, can run on things for you, and so on and so forth. And it sounds like you've got all three of those things happening here for you. We do. So that is truly a no-brainer then. So let me ask you this. I'm a huge proponent of the military. I feel like, I immigrated to this country. I'm one of the proudest Americans you can imagine. And so grateful for the fact that we live in the greatest country on earth because of our military. So thank you for everything you do, my friend. And those of you in the military that are listening, thank you. What advice would you give, not just the military, but anyone in the military for sure, about, based on what you know now about this business, what would you tell them if they're, even active or even, past military about this business?
I would just say, get involved early and learn first. I think that was my biggest hurdle. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad for the first time almost 20 years ago, and he talks about commercial real estate. And in the back of my mind, I thought, I can't do commercial real estate. I can do single family. I can't do commercial. So I would say that it's not that difficult once you understand how everything works, so it takes an awful lot of work to get there, but I would just say, do your homework, learn about it. And something that I always point out is, figure out what your long-term objectives are, because that's going to dictate more what strategy you use with real estate than anything else. If your long-term objectives are X, there's a certain path that's going to get you there better than, if you have different long-term objectives.
Yeah. And which is one of the reasons the first thing we do at one of my boot camps is we go through figuring out exactly what someone wants, because how the heck are you ever going to get anything if you don't know what it is? And so that clarity is so critical. So I'm really glad you said that. The knowledge is the most important piece, because in this business, you have to influence people. And the only way you're going to influence them is if you're confident. And the only way you're going to be confident is if you're competent. And so, it's kind of that, build your competence, equates to confidence, and then it equates to your ability to influence. So, why do you think people fail or give up in this business?
It's not easy. Is the answer. It is not easy. It's 100 no's before you get a yes. And when I started looking for the first property, I was calling brokers, and most brokers would basically fill me out. It was like 20 questions with some of them, and I would rarely get calls back. Sometimes they promised to send me something, and I'd never get another email. So it is frustrating at first, and that's why I think, and by the way, I went to your boot camp in January, and I think your approach is great. Think about the why first. And that's really what kept me going was, I had a defined date on my calendar that I would retire from the Marine Corps. And, I started 3 years out, and I said, by the time I retire, I want this business to be to the point to where I can support my family to the level that I'm currently supporting my family. So it's difficult. It's not easy. But in my case, that big burning why, that date on the calendar, seeing my 5 kids every day, reminded me every day that I need to keep pushing so that I can provide for my family, post Marine Corps.
Thank you for reminding me the fact that you have 5 kids. I grew up with five boys in my family as well. And so let's shift for a second and talk about that work-life balance thing, because here you've created this on the side, full-time gig, 5 kids, wife, how do you do it?
About 2 years ago, I just had a conversation with my wife, and, it was like, hey, this is what I want to do. She knew I was interested in real estate. I talked to her about real estate pros and cons ever since, we bought our first single family house, but, it's just a conversation about, priorities, where we wanted to go as a couple and as a family. And, we decided that, now's the best time to make the sacrifice. And so I am sacrificing some time with it. And my wife agreed with me that this was the right thing to do. And, so she's sacrificing as well. I mean, there's a lot of nights that I come home from the Pentagon and I've got 2 or 3 calls lined up, and so, as much as I can, I try to spend times with the kids, playing Xbox or, watching, YouTube with the kid on my lap. But, for now, it's, for these couple of years, it was an intended sacrifice on both of our parts. She's taking the lion's share of the, of taking care of the kids. And two, one of my kids is married now, but, so we've got 4 at home, but,
okay.
The balance is tricky, it just takes a little bit more deliberate planning on, spending time with the family, spending time with the kids, and make sure you get that time in too.
Yeah. One of the things I teach at my boot camp, I don't think I did it in January. That was LA, right?
That was LA.
God, when the world was different.
I know.
I had 800 people scheduled for Orlando in May, and whoa, wow, we had 900 people at my first live stream and 700 at the second. But but one of the things that I teach is this weekly planning process, because one of my greatest regrets in life was coming home to my kids but being distracted. I'd play with them, but I wasn't there mentally. It's the greatest regret, truly, to this day, actually. Mm-hmm. And my kids will say I was a great dad, but I didn't live up to my own expectations. And so, if you find, those of you listening, you find that on this quest for success, that you're not giving the attention, or you're distracted when you're with those people that matter, well, another reason for you to come to my boot camp, because I spend time on developing this planning process where you actually block time for your family. I know it sounds crazy, but it really is necessary, so that, because I will tell you that, and this, Brian, that your wife and your kids would rather have you uninterrupted and undistracted for 15 minutes than an hour of distraction. So, right. They want your presence. They want you there. And, awesome. Well, very impressive what you've been able to do with 5 kids and the full-time job and all that. And so, guys, that should inspire you to what's possible. And, most of my students have, done all this on the side as well. And several have retired now from their jobs, because their passive income has exceeded their high-paying W-2. But so let's shift gears for a second, Brian. Talk about, or maybe you did already, a war story. Was it that first deal? Was it that interest rate, or do you have anything else you could share? Maybe the lesson, when you really got your butt kicked in this business, and the lesson from it.
That was definitely the biggest war story, was that interest rate. I mean, we were, we had to burn an extension. Actually, we had already burned an extension because, for some reason, the lender just took an awful long time getting our loan approved. We were already at 75 days waiting for the lender to approve the loan when Fannie Mae hit their lending cap. So so when I said earlier, I wish we would have been a little more had more of a sense of urgency. We should have put that loan application in a lot earlier. But yeah, that was the biggest war story, because we had already burned one extension, and we had money in the bank to be able to close. And when we lost $500,000 in proceeds, we went from fully funded to, oh my gosh, can we actually close?
Right. Because that meant he had to raise another $500,000. Okay. Right. So there's that, plus, a higher interest rate, plus a different split, not fun. But you learn from all of this. And that's how you learn from these setbacks. These setbacks are feedback,
Yeah. And we had limited time, and we were in South Carolina, so sat down with the brokers, and we just explained where everything was. And we said, hey, this deal's hanging by a thread. I need you to go back to the seller and keep this thing alive. And they understood. I mean, they knew what was happening in the capital markets, and they went to bat for us. They got us some extra time. We rolled the dice on interest rate, by not locking at a certain time. But we ended up, like I said, we ended up doing okay. We did reach out to a couple people that we knew could raise money quickly, and we had 1 or 2 people bring some cash in, as gave them obviously part of the GP and responsibilities in the GP besides just capital raising.
Sure.
and we all reached it into our own back pockets and put more money into the deal. So
whatever it takes,
yeah.
whatever it takes. So, it's worth it. And you get that one behind you, and you bring the lessons forward. And, again, I lost $50 million. And of course I'm back much, much faster than the first time. And that's just how it works. That's the way things work. So what do you think is the best advice you've ever received, Brian?
I would say my dad when I was 17, and I don't know if this was a planned thing that he said or just off the cuff. But he looked at me once and he just said, "I'll give you advice on anything you ever want." But he looked at me and he said, "But just realize that there's some things that I'm not very good at." He's like, "I've never learned how to do money. I've never learned how to make a lot of money. I've never learned the key to wealth." And he mentioned a couple other things. He said, "So when you want advice for those things, it's better for you to go somewhere else." So, and at 17,
smart guy. You had a good dad there. Wow.
At 17, I didn't appreciate it, but for some reason I remembered it later. And it was just one of those things where, I asked my dad for advice on a lot of things, but, he taught me that, I need to have a mentor who's been where I want to be if I want to get there.
Right.
Right. That's why,
It's good advice.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. I mean, I've had mentors my whole life. I do right now. I've, for every aspect of my life, from health to my relationships, to, of course, business, to real estate, to, you name it. And because they shorten the learning curve. Yeah. And it's so critical. And of course, I've made every mistake known to man at the times when I didn't use mentors, but those seminars are unnecessary. So is there a question that I didn't ask you that you wish I had, my friend?
I think we've about covered it,
Yeah. So speak to the people that are listening that have not taken action yet. What would you tell them? They know they want this. They know they deserve this. Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they have a fear of failure. Now, I would say to them, fear of regret more than failure. But what would you say to those that haven't taken action, and maybe speak to how you push through the fear to do your first deal? Because I'm sure, their first deal is always scary.
I would say, like I said before, just have that big burning why in front of you, so have that goal, have the clear image of what you want. A lot of people talk about, the goal, posters or whatever. I don't have any of those.
No.
I have it all written down in a notebook, but I reflect on it every day. Right. And the other thing is, it's overwhelming when you look at the entire thing from beginning to end. For somebody who's new and not familiar with the business, I was overwhelmed many times when I thought, oh my gosh, this is complicated. But I would always boil it down to, okay, what are the next 2 or 3 things that I can do to get this done? And every time I got to the point to where I was overwhelmed, I just dialed it back into, 1 or 2 or 3 things. I'd write them down and I would say, okay, this is the next step for me. I'm going to call 5 brokers this week, or I need to talk to an SEC attorney, and so I think when you take the whole big process and break it down into bite-sized pieces, it becomes less overwhelming and more actionable. And that couple that with your big burning why, and it makes the whole process a lot easier, and you can stay motivated through the process as well.
Love it. I just started reading Think and Grow Rich again. And as you know, you got a copy from me when you were in LA in January. And I just was reading it again last night, and talks about burning desire. And you have to know what it is you want and why you want it, which is, one of the first things we do at my boot camp. And people are like, oh, come on, let's get on with the real estate. But it's probably the most important thing we do, because that's the driver. That's what makes it happen. Well, listen, brother, thank you for your service. Sincerely, thank you for your service and to this country, this great country we live in. And I really appreciate you being on the show. And I did not know you were in LA at my boot camp. That's very cool. I'm glad that you were there, and it's very much a pleasure to meet you, my friend.
Pleasure's all mine, Rod. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Rod, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. Now, I know you've been hard at work helping our Warrior students do just that using our ACT methodology, which is awareness, close, and transform. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
You bet.
Guys, we've been going nonstop for 3 years, building an amazing community of like-minded people. And our coaching students, which we call our warriors, have had extraordinary results. They've purchased thousands and thousands of units. And last year we did over 1,000 units with our students. And we're looking to grow this group and take it to the next level. We're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework that's really step by step, and then leverage our systems and network to raise equity, to find and close deals, and to build partnerships nationwide. Now, our warrior community is finding success in any market cycle. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more of our incredible network and take advantage of the incredible opportunities that are coming very soon, apply to work with us at mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 41411. That's mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 41411.